Back in the early '60s, I remember we went up to San Francisco on vacation, and we went. It's the first time I saw Playland in San Francisco, which was an incredible raceway. Had the biggest track I'd ever seen. It was like 280 feet. It was amazing. It was a monster of a track, and all these guys were running these laminated plastic hand controls. Because back in the day, in the late '60s, how you take 3 or 4 colors of laminated plastic, glue them together, and then they'd cut a shape out and everything, and all exposed. And it was so completely different than everything we were running. Because at the time, I think we were still running MRRC controls and Cox controls and everything, and and Jack Garcia plunger type controls. And Jack Garcia came in. I'll never forget. He had dynamic brakes.
Your thumb would get tired, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was something in those days, and just the cars. I mean, today we can afford more than we could, and now you see people to this day, Stubby and Terry and everything. Now that we have the equipment, Phil's been top qualifier so many times here and winning because of the fact. Now he can afford it. He's got the same.
All I got to do now is win.
Field.
Now I got to win the race.
Now you got to win the race.
One hot lap doesn't cut it. But you know what? The bottom line is even if you have the money, even if you have all the money to buy whatever equipment you want,
you still got to drive it.
That's not going to buy you a win.
You still got to drive it, and I think that's one of the things that surprised everybody coming back, is that Brian's better now than he ever was. Phil is too, and I think quite honestly, like you see Terry Schmidt, he's getting back into it and getting the hang of it. But in his day, these guys, Terry, Mike, and those guys were unbeatable. But now. They're finding out, 40 years later, if you've got equal equipment, we'll run you for it,
Well, I think, too, all the equipment is so much better that you can buy now over the counter. Back then, those guys, things were changing so fast because they were constantly building chassis. You'd read in the Scale Racing News, I'd look in there and look at all the different pictures of the chassis and go, oh, there's Sucrus, he's a real famous guy. There's his chassis, and there's Pete Zimmerman, and of course Brian and John and a lot of other guys, Terry, and so I'd look at those and I'd try to copy that. Well, I couldn't. I could try to copy it, but it didn't really work because they had all the latest, best tires and all that sort of thing, and so it's
and nobody had the information. Nobody shared anything. Today, you can look on the slot blog and you can see what Keith Tanaka posts, and you can see immediately. In those days, nobody would even tell you what gears they were running, let alone take a look and see how to build a chassis or something. There was just and motors. You'd never get a motor. My God,
no.
Bill Stubbe never gave you a motor. Even if you could buy a Stubbe motor, you never got the motor that Mike and Terry were running, ever. Just didn't happen. And the Miras that Sucrus ran were a lot better than any Mira that ever came out over a counter. It was quite a bit different. And so you're handicapped right from the start.
So what do you think about today's B3 racing?